Today we're going to do a Q&A, and these questions were submitted by my Instagram. We got so many questions that were submitted. I don't know how many we're going to be able to get through, but starting with the very first one, and this says, I want to smell like motor oil. Now that's a bit of a difficult one because I don't know too many people that want to smell like motor oil, but I have two suggestions for you. So the first one being Mischief. Now this is not the exact one. This one smells like Fabuloso, and let me tell you, it smells exactly like Fabuloso. They do make another one called WD-40, and I can only assume it's going to smell exactly like WD-40. So there's my first suggestion. The second suggestion, and this is actually from a niche house called Gravel, and I cannot help but get hints of motor oil in this. It's not exactly strictly motor oil. It's almost like you're a mechanic working on an engine and you're wearing like a blue fragrance. So it may not exactly be motor oil, but it has got that motor oil vibe. Next question, how many bottles should a fragrance collection have? At what point should you stop buying more? I'm guilty of it too, but for me, it's a different reason. But social media glorifies the need to have many fragrances. But I think the average person really only needs about 3 to 5. If you could narrow it down to different occasions, realistically, you only need one per occasion. A few of those occasions being a daily wear, gym scent, if you go to the gym, date night, special occasion, or something for the colder weather. But at the same time, your special occasion and date night could overlap, and your gym and daily wear could overlap. So it's not necessary to have a big collection. That being said, you can have as many as you like, or as much as your bank account allows, and you don't need to overconsume. Personally, I enjoy having a large collection. I'll often pick fragrances based on the occasion, but also what I'm wearing, my mood, so there are a few factors, and it's something that I kind of like to geek out and discuss with my friends. I think the main difference here is that for myself and for a lot of other people, it's more of a hobby. But for others, it's a daily consumable, just like your body wash, and you want to smell better. Next question, what's a perfume you wore during the lowest point in your life? Nothing. I couldn't afford it, and there were other things to spend money on other than fragrance, so nothing. Moving along to the next one. Ingenious Ginger, Vibrato, or L'Immensité. Now, these are all very similar fragrances, but I'm going to quickly break down these small differences and who they're suited to. L'Immensité, Louis Vuitton, probably the more mature out of the lot. This one is a ginger, but with spice. Ingenious Ginger, probably more suited to the younger folk because it has that ginger with some added vanilla. It is also a little bit more sweet and more playful and fun out of the three. And the one that you probably want, or at least the one that I like the most, and that is Vibrato. In my opinion, it's the cleanest and it's the best performing one out of the three. That being said, get your nose on them before you buy them. They are expensive fragrances, so do your homework first. What's your most valuable fragrance apart from your ouds? That would have to be Xerchoff Tony Iommi, but this, apart from being one of my favorite scents of all time, which is the Defied, this is a signed crystal bottle. It's called the Crystal Skull Edition. And this is signed by Tony Iommi himself, who's the lead guitarist for Black Sabbath, as well as the owner of Xerchoff. As far as value, highly collectible because I only made a very, very, very small batch of these things. I paid around $1,250 for it. Is it worth it? To me, absolutely so. I'd buy another one if given the opportunity. This is the original, and this is the Signed Skull Edition. Realistically, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to many people, but as a collector, just something I had to have in my collection. Can Club de Nuit Man fragrances smell different every batch? I love this question. I think it's very important for you guys to know too, but I have quite a variety of different fragrances here. We have the artisanal batch, which I think a lot of the artisanal community is going to get very offended that it's sat next to a Club de Nuit. But interesting fact, I met with the perfumer Russian Adam in Dubai, and he actually tried Bling and thought it was a nice fragrance. But to explain the differences, artisanal batches, they're made in very small batches. This could be anything from 30, 50, maximum 100. They make these batches using different sort of raw materials. They can never reproduce the exact scent because all of these raw materials do smell different by batch. So small batch. Then we get something more on the niche side, and here I have 2 different bottles of Vibrato, one being from Italy and one being from France. Now, when it comes to the niche fragrances, apart from some minor differences in the design on the bottle itself, the scent, let's take for example the note ginger. Italian batch, they could be sourcing from Nigeria, whereas the French batch, they could be sourcing ginger from China. It still smells like ginger, but there are some minute differences in terms of the note. Now, to the average person, probably almost indistinguishable, but to myself, that is an absolute Vibrato fiend, I can pick up the difference. Now, I have to premise the whole ginger, Nigeria, China, it was an example. I don't want you guys to now deep dive in terms of where ginger comes from. Moving on to our Middle Easterns, particularly Club de Nuit. week. Whereas with these, they get mass produced and they're pushed out in such great volume. The difference, where there could be a difference in these mass produced batches, is when it comes to the maceration period. That is a process that the fragrances go through that helps the different notes and different ingredients bind together. But when you're working on such great volume, they don't necessarily allow for the same maceration period because they have to get the volume out, and therefore you could sometimes pick up differences in the scent. And that really comes down to the time that these fragrances sit in that maceration process. Some of them obviously get bottled, they get filled, and they just get pumped out, they get sent out. They don't allow as much maceration, so the scent doesn't bind and doesn't mature as well as some of the other batches. Something I also want you guys to know is that fragrances can oxidize. The notes can therefore change a little bit, so the more fragrance you use, the more oxygen there is in the bottle. So when you're close to finishing one bottle and you're buying another, this one has gone through the oxidization process, and therefore the new bottle that you get might not necessarily smell the same as the one that you finished. That was super complex. My mouth is actually dry from all of that, so I need a sip. But yeah, we went down a rabbit hole, we geeked out for a little bit. What cheap, fresh fragrance would you buy if it was at a niche price point? Now, I absolutely love this question. There are a few, but one in particular that comes to mind. There is no... Fuck, that didn't exactly go as planned, but Issey Miyake Le Eau de Issey Par Homme. It's a cheap fragrance that has this niche, natural kind of smell to it. Like, if I took this juice and I put it in, let's say, Zerchoff or Goldfield and Banks, people would go crazy over it. It smells unique. The performance is, let's say, decent, and it's such good quality. Next question, vanilla or oud? Oud for sure. It's just so much more interesting and complex. That being said, there are different types of vanilla. You get your Madagascan vanilla, your vanilla absolute, but personally, it's oud for me. Please review Lamborghini Zerchoff. Now, I've actually had the fragrances for quite a few weeks, and I have not been allowed to talk about them yet. But the time has come. However, you guys have to wait for the full video. That being said, the blue one, any fragrance that you hate the opening but love the dry down, I would have to say Bergamasque or Bergamasque from Otto Parisi. Now, I won't say that I exactly hate the opening. I don't necessarily like the opening. It opens up with this kind of citronella bug spray. However, the dry down on this is absolutely magnificent. And that dry down lasts for probably 48 hours. Now, that might be a little bit extreme, but it smells so good that I don't mind. What do you think would be the best summer fragrance under $40? There's actually so many. So I'm gonna go scratch around in my cupboard. I'm gonna show you guys what I think. So rapid fire, I've kind of picked some that stood out to me. First, we have Lattafa Breeze. Then we have another one from Lattafa, that's Dynasty. We have Rehan Aquatica, Mykonos Dreamscape, Rasasi Hawass Ice, Nusuk Summer or Summer Nusuk. And lastly, we have some Rare Reef. If you're interested in buying, go and do your homework on these, but under 40 bucks, they're all great fragrances. What do you look for when buying a fragrance? So this is for me, not when I'm reviewing content. What I will do, and this is something that I recommend to you guys, if you're going to, like, for example, Sephora, would have a bunch of different fragrances, I would spray a different scent on different pulse points. So typically it'll be 1, 2, I'll spray various fragrances on me. Very important, you need to remember what those are. Throughout the day, you're always gonna go back to one. One is gonna catch your preferences, and that is the one that you should buy. Why I recommend this process, and allow it a few hours, but there's always gonna be one because the scent does change. Obviously, you want something that smells good and that you prefer, but also performance. I'm a guy that likes beast mode performance fragrances, and you're gonna clearly be able to distinguish which one lasts longer on your skin. It is more of a personal thing. It's about that process of trying and just seeing where your preference lies. What was your first ever fragrance, if you remember? I certainly do, because it's a very distinct, very unique smell. It is Pinot Silvestre. Now, to give you some backstory, I had family in Italy, and whenever they came to visit us in South Africa, they would bring and gift a Pinot Silvestre. So I did end up having a few of these. It's this beautiful, like, pine needle, pine cone scent. It's fresh, it's masculine, and yeah, it's a little bit outdated now. Probably not even something I would recommend, but you gotta bear in mind, the shit was free, but that was mine. What do you wear on planes? Ideally, you wanna wear something that's not offensive because you're gonna be sitting next to others. I will go as far as saying that I found an oud in my backpack, which I was delighted. This was mid-flight. I took some oud out, I put it on my skin, and let's just say people thought I shat my pants because the flight attendant ran through the aisle with some air freshener. Azorochrome, probably a great choice though. Do you think leather is an underrated note? I 100% do. There are some incredible leather fragrances that I have. Memo Paris being one of them, PM from Fragrance du Bois, and then Quoium from Otto Parisi. accuracy. Next question, what's the best dupe company? Now that's a difficult question to answer because after smelling around 2,000 dupe fragrances, I've established that each brand has its own sort of identity. Like after exploring a lot of the Latafas, I would say they shine through in the darker, kind of more date night scent. Whereas with Afnan, I would say they're probably more suited to your designer-esque, more mass appealing fragrances. Then you have the likes of Cottage. Now this one's a bit of a mixed bag because they have hundreds of fragrances they don't even have in the United States, and I'm trying my best to convince them to get some of these scents here. I'll give you guys an example. This is Ethereum, which is one of the most beautiful date night, elegant, kind of soft oud fragrances. And this thing's like 30 bucks. But not available in the United States. Then you get the accuracy companies. An example of that would be Maison Azrar and Velixa. Like their sole purpose is to recreate the fragrance to a T, and they do a good job at that. How do I get as much female attention from a single fragrance? Now, to be very honest with you guys, no single fragrance is going to get you the attention of girls. I feel like a lot of other creators have been very misleading in terms of saying that. Like, yes, fragrances are part of your outfit and an expression of that. But in my opinion, it makes up for 2 to 5% of your overall presence. If you want the attention of girls, what I would say is take care of your overall presentation. Make sure that you look good. Make sure that you dress good. Groom yourself well. Do your hair, brush your teeth, and add a nice fragrance. If you want them to lean in and compliment you, probably vanilla is going to get you a little bit closer. But you cannot single-handedly rely on a fragrance because you will be overcompensating. I thoroughly enjoyed making this video. There were literally hundreds of questions that came through, so we're going to do this again, but see you guys in the next one.